Hi, good afternoon all. Thank you for joining our cooking session for Katsu Curry. Before we kick off, I'll wait a couple of minutes to see people logging on and then we'll commence. So we'll wait a couple of minutes before we actually kick off the live cooking session. And what I'll do is I'll cover off the ingredients that we should have ready for this session as well. Just to make sure everything's in order and you have everything you need. And some mention some substitutes just in case you don't have all the ingredients that are ready to start. So, as again, we'll wait a few minutes for a few more people to join and then see how it goes. Thank you, Geeta. Thank you, Gitibai. Let's see how it goes. Obviously, just a quick one while we're waiting for a few people. The aprons are courtesy of Pritesh and Kiran for our Father's Day. I think it gave them the idea what to get me for Father's Day because then you are doing the cooking blast. Master chef's an overstatement, but a chef in the house. Okay, I think we've got quite a few people on now, so I'm just going to cover off the ingredients just to see, basically to make sure what we've got here. So before we start the actual curry itself, I'll cover off we'll need about 2 tablespoons of oil to start making the sauce. Just to confirm, for the sauce, we're going to be using, the base is going to be carrots, onions, and coriander stalks. Now, for those that actually don't like onions, I will substitute the onions with celery because that's a good substitute for onions and it still maintains the flavor. So carrots, coriander stalks, and onions to start off with. Your powders or your spices are garam masala, teaspoon, curry powder, medium or hot. In our case, I'm using hot because that's a taste preference. A bit of ginger and garlic, a tablespoon of plain flour, and that helps obviously thicken the sauce, and salt to taste. We're also going to be putting in soy sauce, and for the bit of sweetness, you could either use mango pickle, maple syrup, and I'm using maple syrup in this case. But if you don't have either or, I would normally say either a bit of core, jaggery, or even just sugar, just to add that bit of sweetness for it. For the panko crumb, I mean, basically, Katsu Curry means breadcrumbing. Katsu is a word for breadcrumbing. And curry, Japanese style, it's about, a very sort of thick-based sauce, slightly sweet and spicy. So it's a very mild curry normally, and obviously for their palate as such. But for our crumbing, what you got is plain flour, and instead of the traditional recipe uses egg yolk, but for our case, what I've done and sort of Desi-fy it a bit because we know we like our spices. This is effectively a very thin, similar batter to what we use for bhajias and that. So this one's corn flour, gram flour, chili powder, and pepper. And that's basically as it is. And the consistency, I hope you can see, is similar to what you would get on the egg yolk. If you don't want to use that, another substitute for egg yolk is the water you get in chipped wheat pans. If you save that you could utilize that for substituting egg yolk in many recipes besides this one. And then in this case, I am actually using breadcrumbs from stale bread. But as I've mentioned, if you don't have breadcrumbs, Rice Krispies, cornflakes, scrambled up will do the job as well. So just to make sure that's what we're going to be working with today. As you can see, there's actually not that many ingredients, so it should hopefully be an easy to follow recipe. To start off with, what I will say is to get your rice going. So my little cheat is the rice cooker, but just a few hints and tips on rice. As soon as you know you're going to cook rice, the longer you soak it, the less time for it to cook. So I will suggest we turn on our rice, and if you've already got the rice and that ready, please do so. I might be coming out a screenshot now and then, and that's because I'll be checking some if you've got any questions on YouTube as well. So please be happy to pose any questions or anything you're not sure on. All right, so I'm just going to turn my rice on, get that going. So by the time the rice is done, hopefully our curry should come together. So to start off the initial process, sort of medium heat on the gas stove, about 2 tablespoons of normal oil, vegetable oil, and the rest we'll use when we're shallow frying. So initially, all you do is you put in your carrots, and as you can see, this is a vegetable base. Yet again, just to reiterate, anyone who doesn't like onions or garlic, substitute the onions for celery. So medium heat, mix it all in, and what we're going to do is just let it saute for about 5 to 6 minutes. So let me just get this going. And what I'll do is, while it's sauteing, hopefully if you've got your katsu breadcrumbing elements ready, we'll actually start that process while this is sauteing as well. And you don't need to add any spices or anything at this stage. What I normally do is just add a pinch of salt to help the onions soften a bit. So I would have done it in the fancy style, but I don't think this is the right base for that. So turn it to medium and let that go. I'm just going to quickly check if there is any questions or any clarifications required. That's good. Thank you all. Thank you, Sunita, Nitin, Asha, Vera. Thank you all. Let's just see. So we'll leave that to one side. What I am going to do now is just move across and show you how to katsu aubergine and sweet potato in this case. If you slice the sweet potato quite slim, similar to a pound point thickness, then it should you shouldn't need to sort of parboil it or anything. So I'm just going to move across here. Down low. Sorry. Okay, so I've already got the sweet potato. As you can see, the depthness is not that thick, and that will enable it to cook when we shallow fry it, so you're using less oil as well. We'll start off with our aubergine. And cut that to similar depth. And I'll do 3 in this case. Put that to one side for later. And the rule of breadcrumbing is always flour, liquid, and then breadcrumb. So let's start the process. Okay, so we'll start off by the flouring process. So dip it in, make sure it's covered nicely and evenly. Then into our substitute yolk, which is similar to chana batter, as I said. There again, make sure the consistency is enough to coat it, allowing it to then take on the breadcrumbs. Put it, I'll just drop it in there. Do the same again. As you can see, it's getting coated quite nicely, evenly where possible. Because we want that flavor to come through, and that's my sort of Desi twist on the Katsu curry, is to enable this. The original curry actually doesn't even have garlic or ginger in it, but I've added it because we like it a bit more spicy as such. Yeah. So I'm just going to do this couple of sweet potatoes. that into the breadcrumbs. We'll pick that up again in a second. So here we go. Flour. I've been told a lot of young kids enjoy this process to play around with, so get them involved as well. Where I sort of got the flavour of cooking and experimenting in the kitchen, it started off a few years ago where, quite a few years ago, where I used to sort of start off experimenting with pasta bases, which I didn't actually quite like. The ready-made pasta sauces that were available out of jars, they have this sort of vinegar taste, which is not to my liking. So, experimenting is great fun. Obviously, you'll get it right once and you'll get it wrong once or twice. I'm sure you'll perfect it thereafter. So don't be shy working in the kitchen. Okay. There we go. So that's bread coming. I'll just get that ready for frying after. If you find the breadcrumbs are not sticking, just either make your gram flour batter a bit more thicker, slightly more. So you could add obviously a bit more water to thicken. I mean, to thin it if it's gone too thick as well. But enough for it to cover both sides, and so you get that crunch. Another piece of advice, what I normally like to do is when I do the bread crumbing, I will have it ready and put it in the fridge for about half an hour. It just helps it all bind together and obviously helps with that crunchy finish. I mean, you can get, even in your breadcrumbs, you could, if you wanted to spice up these parts, you could actually add any herbs in there. But at the end of the day, you're just adding flavor, so you're not taking away from it. You're using an original, I mean, this recipe, I mean, just so the base recipe, I'm actually using one that was on Instagram from Nisha Palmer, ex-MasterChef contestant. And in fact, quite a few of her recipes are straightforward and very simple. And I've been experimenting quite a few with her recipes at the moment because, to be honest, there's no jargon in it. It's quite straightforward. So that's what we've done. So we've got the breadcrumbing in there. Both, we've got the sweet potatoes and the aubergines. They're both evenly covered. And then now we do is go back to our curry sauce. I'm going to check YouTube if you've got any questions. And then we'll go back to our curry sauce. What I will do is get my sous chef for a change. We'll have to put this in the fridge while we're doing that. And trust me, it's a rare occasion for the wife being a sous chef. Normally I'm the sous chef cutting and doing it, so she cooks quite well. While that's going, I'm going to sort of increase the heat a bit because you want them to soften before we add all our other masalas, flavors, to flavor it and to get that sauce going as well. So I'll just increase the heat a bit. And I'm just going to let that sit while I check if you do have any questions or anything. Have a look. Okay, no questions. So hopefully you're all following quite well and you're enjoying it. So that's the base. Now what we're going to do is start adding masalas and everything into it now. So we've done the breadcrumbing. Now we add our curry powder. So this is about 1 tablespoon, 1 teaspoon in the menu, but as I said, we like our flavors to be a bit more stronger. So garam masala. Just mix that in. I haven't added the ginger and garlic at this stage. I will add it in a minute. I like my masala to burn off, and then I like to add the ginger and garlic. Pure reason being is that ginger and garlic doesn't need too long, I believe, to sort of soak in. And if you obviously overcook it, you get that bitter smell. Or bitter taste, sorry, not smell, the bitterness out of it. So put the masalas in. Put in now the flour, 1 tablespoon, wheat tablespoon of flour, and that's effectively what's going to thicken your sauce. You'll see when I add the water as it starts cooking and it starts thickening. I'll add the ginger and garlic in as well at this stage. So we've actually added in all our masalas that we need for this recipe. I'm going to add a bit of salt in. I'm going to let that cook. Turn the heat down while it's cooking away. We just mix it up a bit. As you can see, it's quite dry, which is what it's meant to do, as you're cooking it off. We've added a bit of salt, we've added flour, and now what we want to do is add our water to it, just to let it start building up that salt and taking on the flavors of the curry powder and of the garam masala that we've put in there. So bring it down a bit. I'm just double checking just in case I haven't missed any elements. So water-wise, you only need about 300 ml to start off with. I'll pour in 150 ml at this stage. And as you can see, we've got that nice, so that's 150 ml. And that will start mixing in. And don't forget, because we've got the flour in there, it's going to start thickening as well as we cook it off. So give it a good stir. And at this stage, you could actually smell now the garam masala, the curry powder. If you can see the color itself. So bit stir to mix it in, medium to low or low to medium flame. And I hope, looking at the ingredients and where I put it together, you can see how simple the process is, or the number of ingredients that go into it. So I'm going to add the remainder of the water, but don't forget, you can change the consistency as you go. So if it becomes too thick, add a bit more water. If it's too thin, then you could add a bit more flour, or corn flour if you want cornstarch. Just mix 1 tablespoon into with corn flour with 2 part corn flour to 1 part water, and that will give you thickness as well. So we'll let this now simmer for a few minutes, because what we're going to do is let this simmer, and then we add the additional flavors to it as well. But whilst this is simmering, I wanted to also say, for people that don't eat spicy, and you've got, and this is a good recommendation from Nisha, which I put, was that make it mild, and then using red chilies, just basically make a side pickle. So red chilies, bit of lemon, bit of salt, and let that rest to one side. So, and then you could obviously regulate the heat for people who like it extra spicy. We're fortunate enough, we all like spicy food here, so it's spicy enough for us. But I've put this as a dish, and that will serve as we garnish the recipe afterwards. So, as you can see, I'm going to let that simmer for a while. And it's on medium at the moment. So, good questions. Can we add water with veg cubes, Peter? In fact, in the recipe that I made, I will normally crumble, and this is a normal trick. Normally, we use vegetable cubes, mix it in water, and then add it to the dish. What I've actually found, and looking at a variety of recipes, is crumble in the stock cube in the actual mixture itself, and then add the water, and that mixes quite well and actually holds the flavor to the items. The reason I hadn't used a vegetable cube, because pureeing is that our base with carrots, onions, and coriander stalks is our vegetable stock effectively. Because what we're gonna do is blitz this in a minute to make it a sauce, basic sauce, and then add to it. As you can see, the sauce is thickening a bit more. All right, I'm just going to increase the heat a bit, just make sure that's right. So yeah, effectively, yes, you can. It does add flavor to it, but you don't necessarily need it. Don't forget also the original recipe, the Wagamama's recipe, if you look at it, it's actually coconut milk. So what I'll show you at the end is yet again, that had a few ingredients at the time of the lockdown I didn't have. So hence, when I found a recipe that was towards the Wagamama, but more, I would say, our Desi flavor, and I thought, let me give it a go, and it actually came out quite well. So I followed that, but I do stick to adding elements of the original recipe. And I actually used, I can't say the word, but coconut pieces to then put at the end as a garnish. So what we now want to do is, now it's obviously coming together, we're going to now add the sweet and sour sort of flavor to it. So we've got 1 tablespoon of soy sauce. I've used dark soy sauce in this one. So hence, be careful when you're using soy sauce and salt, because it's quite salty as it is. So I would add the soya and then taste, and then if need be, based on your taste preference, add more. Sorry, I forgot to mention, in my case, I'm using maple syrup for the sweetness. Mango is what Nisha used. So use sugar, jaggery, anything to add that sweetness to it. Or honey as well, obviously. So as you can see, the color is now changing. Obviously, the soy sauce brings in another element to it. So it's getting quite dark. You may be thinking, okay, well, that's gone a bit too dark. When you, excuse me, when you blitz it, it will actually problem trying to remember that. Well, back in true Desi terms, we had a short interval there. So we're back after the short interval. In this case, it was a bit of a technical picture. So what we got, where I left off was, I'm going to let that cool for a few minutes while we do the shallow fry of the katsu, breadcrumb, aubergine, and sweet potato. Now, one of the questions, you don't necessarily have to use aubergine. You could use, obviously, in this case, I'm using sweet potatoes. Some people welcome back after that short interval. I believe where I left off was from the question that was asked, where is, do you have to use aubergines? And as I was saying, in this case, I'm using sweet potatoes, aubergines, but you can, some people use normal potatoes. I believe you could use courgettes as well, because anything that gives you that consistency and is going to cook. Right, so let me just turn the oil back on. As I said, we've got our curry sauce here simmering away. I'm going to blitz that in a minute. The rice click, so that's been done as well. So we're actually not far off from having this ready to be served. So let the water, let the oil heat up a bit, and then I'll put in the aubergine and the sweet potato to get katsu and ready to be served. So I think that's not enough. So let me just put these back in. A good non-stick frying pan does the job. Yeah, I mean, nowadays you want to use less oil, so yeah, shallow frying does the trick. It's basically the outside. Do it on a low to medium flame, which will then allow it to cook through. So while that's simmering away, what I'm going to do is now blitz this in a blender. You can, if you're used to, use a hand blender in there, but trust me, I don't want to pebble dash my kitchen, so I'm going to use a blender, just a blender curry sauce. I'll just put it into the blender. As you can see, it's quite thick, it's all come together. So now we're making it into our curry sauce. And even at this stage, you could add a bit of water to the blender to make it a bit more saucy, a bit more curry-like. As I said, if you are comfortable using a hand blender, you can blend it straight in the pot itself and then let it cook off. I'm not, then I'm using a glass blender. Just stick it on. Be sure to cover your blender. I'm actually going to add a bit of water just to get the consistency right in the blender before I put it back in the pan. And when I mean a bit, only a bit at this stage. Good. I'm going to return it to the pan again just to wait. As you can see, or you'll see in a second, it's quite thick. I will just add a bit more water just to get the best out of what's left in here. Sorry if I got my back to yourself. Bring that back to the stove. As you can see, just check on the frying. We need to turn them over. So just turn them over. See they're browning on either side. So you've got a nice bit of colour there. That's what you effectively want. Bit of browning, crispiness. And it's always nice when you make that sizzling noise. Okay, so I'm going to turn this back on again, our curry sauce, the medium. And as you can see now, the colour is actually as you would expect for katsu curry to look like. So as you can see, we're now really just fine-tuning this. Mixing it, depending as again the consistency you like. This is sufficient consistency for the curry. Heat it through again, blending everything, capturing all the flavors that are all inside. Sorry, I'm just looking at if there's any questions. Also, I mean, once you've made the sauce and like any curry sauce, you can actually make it in bulk, like Thai green curry sauce, red curry sauce. So utilize what you want and then freeze the rest and bring it out whenever you need. Then you only have to do is the actually accompanying katsu. I will say I think that's ready to serve. Let that brown a bit more. So the serving, at this stage, as I said, I wanted to add, without, so you can use coconut milk, which is the original Wagamama recipe, but what I find is just using the desiccated coconut just on the top, just to give it that little sweetness and flavor that stays, you get that taste first when you actually eat it and add it at the end. Because, again, the coconut doesn't actually need cooking in there, it just adds to the flavor. I believe there's some issues with freezing screens and that, so I'm just checking that. So what I'm going to do is once I start taking up and thereafter, if there's any questions, I'll be obviously online to answer any questions or anything about this recipe, about best way to get started in cooking. The media team reached out a few times for me to cook, and I believe, not to be sort of sexist, but to say is to get men in the kitchen cooking and experimenting a bit more. Unfortunately, I wasn't fortunate enough to go to university, but I think the university students that go now leave home with two ideal recipes how to do your wagar, and that suffices for everything. So if you know how to make chana masala, the base of it, effectively, you've got chana masala, makai masala, paneer masala, same base for everything. So learn one base, and that could give you a multitude of dishes out of that. So I'm just going to turn that off, and I'm going to be ready to plate now. Turn that off. So for our plating and presentation, I'm just going to pick up the rice, which has been ready, that we put on at the beginning. So for the plating of it, I like, there's your rice mountain. Then we go with our katsu pieces. Line them up as you need, as you like. Oops. They're a bit hot. I think I'll go for aubergine on this one. And then I'm just going to take a plate and put the curry sauce. Now, as I said, if the curry sauce goes on the side, and you could adjust the consistency if it's too thick by adding more water if needed to it. Then, just to finish it off, obviously for the healthier option, you want a bit of greenery to go with it. So I just top it off with some leaf salad, bit of fresh cucumber on the side. Obviously, you could actually use what you want now for the people that like it spicy. And if you've made your curry to sort of cater for different strengths of spiciness you have, just put either the green or the red chilies that we had marinating in the salt and pepper. And I just like to put that on top of there. And then just finish it off with, if you like the sweetness, there you go. Maybe a second. Just for visual purposes, as they do in order. So that's your katsu curry ready. And so without the technical issues, I believe that dish took about less than half an hour to get ready and prepare everything together. So that's the katsu curry. Yet again, as I said, using the base, freeze it, keep it for later. And obviously that's what we're having for dinner tonight. Okay, any questions, anyone? So apologies on behalf of the media team again for the technical issues. These things happen. Obviously you could play back the video on YouTube and then go through, step by step to slow it down. If I was a bit too fast or a bit too slow and not clear, apologies for that. But yeah, any questions? We'll give it a few minutes and then we'll sign off. But remember what I said, if you like recipes and you like the food your parents cook, take the effort, and with the technology we've got now, write the recipe down or record them cooking. Trust me, you'll remember it in years to come. And for those people that don't eat onion and garlic, we're fortunate enough to be in a day and age where veganism is growing, so there's vast alternatives. So if you like, for example, this recipe wanted egg yolk, all you do is get a bit more creative. What does the egg yolk do? It will just to bind and to capture the breadcrumbs. So we used ground flour, a bit of masala, pepper on it. As I said, you can use the water from chip tins. Keep that to one side; they always come useful. That's it. Thank you all. Hopefully, you all give it a go, and then please share photos of how you got on. If you have joined along and you've been cooking along. If you haven't, whenever you do try it, give me a shout. Yet again, it was one of those dishes that looked complicated, but trust me, as you can see, when you put it together, it wasn't. So, as I said, if you don't try, you don't know. And if you try and you fail, just try again, and that's only food at the end of the day. You can't really fail. And for those people that eat whatever they pleasure, you can obviously substitute the aubergines and that for chicken if you want. So, yeah, for those people that vegetables, then you can. That's it. Thank you all. Thank you for joining. I appreciate it.